Last month, I opened my banking app and tapped the one screen nobody ever taps. Interest earned year to date, $1.04. I had about 10 grand sitting in that account all year and my bank paid me $1.04. Meanwhile, that same bank in a single recent year made $92.6 billion off the gap between what it pays people like me and what it charges people like me. And here's the part that actually got under my skin. Everything I'm about to show you today was sitting in plain sight the whole time, on government websites, buried in my own benefits portal, written into the tax code in plain English. Nobody hid it in a vault. They just made sure the default path points the other way. Because this isn't really a video about savings accounts. This is a video about how the factory settings on your financial life are quietly costing you about a decade of your future, and how flipping 4 switches for free gets it back. My name is Nick, and I've spent way too much time reading IRS documents so you don't have to. If you've ever felt like the financial system was designed by someone who actively dislikes you, hit subscribe, because today we're going to reverse engineer the entire thing, run the real numbers, and figure out exactly how many years of your life are sitting on the table right now. Quick housekeeping before we start. I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't financial advice. This is math. Publicly available, slightly infuriating math. Also, when I say this strategy costs $0, I mean it literally. No course, no apps, no guy in a rented Lamborghini. Every single move in this video is a setting you change, a form you fill out, or a box you check. The cost is about an hour of your life and the mild existential discomfort of realizing you could have done this years ago. Deal? Deal. Let's start with the engine that makes the whole thing run. Here's the question almost nobody asks correctly. How long do you have to work before you can stop? Most people think the answer depends on how much you earn. It doesn't. It depends almost entirely on one number, your savings rate, the percentage of your take-home pay that you keep instead of spend. And the math behind this is so simple, it's almost offensive. If you spend everything you make, you can never retire. Doesn't matter if you make $50,000 or $500,000. You will work until your body files a formal complaint. If you save 100% of your income, congratulations, you're already retired. And also, how are you eating? Everyone on earth lives somewhere between those 2 points, and where you sit on that line determines your entire working life. Back in 2012, a blogger called Mr. Money Mustache published what's basically the periodic table of personal finance. Assuming average market returns and a standard withdrawal rate, a 10% savings rate means you work for 51 years. 51, start at 22, retire at 73, hope your knees kept the receipts. Bump that to 15% and it's 43 years. At 25%, it drops to 32 years. At 50%, it's 17. Look at what just happened there. Going from saving 10% to saving 25% didn't shave off a couple years, it deleted 19. 19 years of alarm clocks gone and your salary never changed. That's the engine. Savings rate is the only lever in personal finance that pushes from both sides at once, because every dollar you don't spend grows your pile and shrinks the pile you need. Now, I can already hear you. Nick, I can't just save 25% of my income. I have a life. Fair. Completely fair. Which is exactly why the rest of this video exists, because the next 4 moves raise your effective savings rate without you eating instant noodles in the dark. They just stop other people from skimming it. Switch number 1, and this is the 10-minute one. Right now, Chase, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo are paying 0.01% on their standard savings accounts, not 1%, 0.01. At the exact same time, FDIC-insured high-yield savings accounts are paying around 4%. Same insurance, same dollar, 400 times the interest. On a $10,000 emergency fund, that's the difference between earning $1 a year and earning $400 a year. The big banks are betting correctly that you'll never move it because the account you opened at 19 is still where your paycheck lands and switching feels like a chore. That bet, multiplied across a $1 trillion deposit base, is a meaningful chunk of that $92.6 billion I mentioned. Your laziness has a line item on their earnings report. Move the emergency fund, 10 minutes, done. Now, I'll be honest with you, $400 a year is not retiring you 10 years early. This is the appetizer. It matters because it's the same mechanism, the default quietly working against you, that we're about to find in much, much bigger rooms. Switch number 2. If your employer offers a 401k match, this is the highest guaranteed return available to any human being on the planet, and 1 in 4 workers is leaving it on the table. The average company match is around 4.6% of your pay, and the most common formula is 50 cents on the dollar up to 6% of your salary. Translation: you put in 6%, they hand you an extra 3% of your salary for free. That is a 50% instant return before the market does anything. There is no hedge fund on earth that delivers a guaranteed 50%. And yet, a massive study of 4.4 million workers found that 25% of employees don't contribute enough to get the full match, walking past an average of $1,336 per year. Nationwide, that's roughly $24 billion in free money every single year, just evaporating. Compound one workers missed match for 20 years, and it's about $43,000. And here's the detail that tells you this isn't a knowledge problem, it's a design problem. Among workers earning under $40,000, 42% miss the full match. Among workers earning over $100,000, only 10% do. The people who most need the free money are the ones the system makes it hardest to claim. So if you take one thing from this video, log into your benefits portal tonight and set your contribution to at least the full match. It's one form. The raise is immediate, okay? You're earning real interest, you're capturing free money. Now, we get to the move that genuinely steals years, and almost nobody can see it because it's invisible by design. Stay with me here, because this is where the decade starts coming back. The single biggest leak in the average American's retirement isn't a purchase, it's fees. Specifically, the fees inside the investments you already own. Here's the math, and it's brutal. Take $100,000, invest it for 30 years at a 6% return in a fund charging 0.1% a year. You end up with around $574,000. In a fund charging 2%, same money, same market, same 30 years, you end up with about $334,000. The fee difference ate $240,000. $250,000 gone, and you never wrote a check, never saw a bill, never felt a thing. That's the genius of it. The fee comes out of your returns before they ever reach you. So the statement always looks fine. You don't lose money. You just lose the money you would have had, which conveniently is impossible to see. And before someone says, yeah, but the expensive funds have professionals picking winners, about that, S&P Global runs a scorecard called SPIVA that compares actively managed funds to the boring index they're trying to beat. Over 15 years, across 22 categories of US stock funds, the number of categories where most professional managers beat their own benchmark was 0, not a few. 0 out of 22. In 2025 alone, 79% of active large cap funds lost to the S&P 500, one of their worst years in a quarter century of data. You are paying 8 times the fee. The average active fund charges around 0.40% versus 0.05% for an index fund, for performance that loses to a robot 9 times out of 10. And it gets one layer worse. If you've also got a financial advisor charging the industry standard 1% of your assets every year, run this number. A $500,000 portfolio growing at 7% for 25 years ends at about $2.7 million without that fee and about $2.15 million with it. That advisor relationship cost $560,000. The rule of thumb inside the industry itself is that every 1% in annual fees costs you roughly 5 to 7 years of working life. So the fix? Open your 401k, find the total market index fund on the menu, the one with the expense ratio, that looks like a typo, 0.05%, sometimes literally 0.00%, and move your balance into it. One trade. No tax consequences inside the account. You just gave yourself a raise of 0.5% a year forever and bought back several years of your life in about 4 clicks. Now for switch number 4, and this one's my favorite because it's the closest thing the US tax code has to a cheat code, and only 20% of the people who have it are actually using it. It's the HSA, the health savings account. And I know, you just heard health savings and your eyes glazed over like a donut. Stay with me for 90 seconds because this boring little account is secretly the most powerful retirement account in America. If you have a high deductible health plan, you can contribute up to $4,400 as an individual or $8,750 as a family in 2026. And that money is 1, tax deductible going in, 2, grows completely tax-free, 3, comes out completely tax-free for medical expenses. No other account in existence gives you all 3. Your 401k taxes you on the way out. Your Roth taxes you on the way in. The HSA just doesn't. And if you contribute through payroll, you also skip the 7.65% FICA tax, which not even a 401k lets you do. But here's the actual move, the one almost nobody runs. Like most people treat the HSA like a medical debit card, money in, copay out. Like instead, you invest the balance, pay today's small medical bills out of pocket, and save every receipt. There's no time limit on reimbursing yourself. So that $90 urgent care visit from 2026, you can pay yourself back for it, tax-free, in 2046 after the money sat in an index fund compounding for 20 years. Max the family contribution for 30 years at a 7% return, and you're sitting on roughly $826,000, fully tax-free for healthcare. And you will need it. Fidelity estimates the average 65-year-old couple now burns through about $345,000 in medical costs in retirement. The HSA covers that entire bill with tax-free money, with change left over. 80% of HSA holders are leaving this in cash. Don't be the 80%. All right, let's put the whole machine together and watch what it actually does to a real life, because this is where it stops being trivia and starts being a decade. Meet a household we'll call the Parkers. Combined income of $83,730 a year, which is exactly the US median, so this isn't some tech bro fantasy. Take home after taxes, roughly $65,000. The Parkers, version A, do what the system suggests. They contribute 6% to get the match, leave it in a fund charging 0.5%, keep their savings at the big bank earning $1 a year, and never touch the HSA. Total savings rate around 9% with the match. On the table we talked about earlier, that's roughly a 33-year runway. Start at 28, retire at 61, and honestly, that's the optimistic version. Now, run the Parkers, version B, same house, same job, same income to the dollar. They push their contributions up to about $13,000 in the 401k. Max the $8,750 family HSA, put $7,500 into a Roth IRA, and collect the same match. With the employer money included, their savings rate lands around 32% of take-home. They swap the 0.5% fund for a 0.05% index fund, picking up roughly another 0.5% of annual return, and the emergency fund earns 4% instead of nothing. Same table, 32% savings rate, about 26 to 27 years. They're done at 54 or 55, while version A of themselves has 6 or 7 more years of Monday stand-ups to attend. Same family, same paychecks. The only difference is which defaults they accepted. And think about what those 6 years actually are. They're not a number on a chart. They're roughly 1,500 more commutes, 300 more Sunday nights with that low hum of dread, 1,000 more times asking a manager for permission to be somewhere else. Version B doesn't get a yacht. Version B gets Tuesdays, that's the entire prize, and it's a better prize than anything in a showroom. And yes, jumping from 9% to 32% is a real lifestyle change. We'll get honest about that in a minute. But notice that a meaningful slice of the gap came from moves that changed their spending by exactly $0. The fee swap, the bank switch, the FICA dodge, the match. Now, if you've been paying attention, you've spotted the plot hole. Nick, all that money is in retirement accounts. You can't touch a 401k until 59 and a half without a 10% penalty. How is anyone retiring at 54? Great question, and the answer is the part of the tax code the FIRE community figured out years ago while the rest of us were arguing about avocado toast. It's called a Roth conversion ladder, and it works like this. The year you stop working, your income drops to nearly nothing, which means you're suddenly in the basement of the tax brackets. So each year, you convert 1 year's worth of living expenses from your traditional 401k, which you've rolled into an IRA, over to a Roth IRA, paying very little tax on the conversion because you have no salary. Here's the magic. IRS rules say that 5 years after each conversion, that money comes out penalty-free and tax-free at any age. So you convert in year 1, withdraw it in year 6, and keep the ladder rolling. You just need about 5 years of expenses in regular savings to bridge the gap, while the first rung season, which conveniently is exactly what version B of the Parkers built. And if the ladder doesn't fit your situation, there are 2 backup doors, also free. Rule 72T lets you take penalty-free withdrawals from an IRA at literally any age as long as you commit to substantially equal payments for at least 5 years. And the rule of 55 says if you leave your job at 55 or later, that employer's 401k opens up penalty-free immediately. None of this is a loophole some lawyer found. It's printed in the Internal Revenue Code on purpose in public. Which brings us to the question in the title. Why do banks hide this? And here's where I'm going to be more honest than the thumbnail. Nobody is hiding it. There's no vault, no memo, no guy in a suit shredding documents about index funds. What exists instead is something quieter and frankly more effective, an incentive structure where the default path and the profitable path are the same path, and it isn't yours. Your bank makes its money on the spread between the 0.01% it pays you and the 7 to 22% it charges borrowers, so it has precisely zero reason to email you about the competitor paying 4%. The investment industry collects fees on the assets it manages, an industry now sitting on over $144 trillion. So the products with the biggest fees get the biggest marketing budgets, and the index fund gets a quiet line on page 4 of your 401k menu. And in case you're wondering whether your advisor is at least legally required to put your interests first, fun update. The rule that would have required exactly that was vacated in court in March of 2026. For most retail relationships, the standard is merely that a product be suitable for you. Suitable! The same bar we apply to airplane seats. So no, it's not a conspiracy. It's just that every institution you interact with earns more when you stay on factory settings, and not one of them earns a cent when you change them. The hiding is the silence. Now, before you go set up 4 accounts in a caffeinated frenzy, let me be crystal clear about who this math does and doesn't work for. Because I refuse to be the guy who tells someone making $40,000 with 2 kids to just save 32%. If money runs out before the month does, your version of this video is 3 moves, take the full match if you have one, move whatever savings you have to a real interest rate, and make sure anything invested is in a 0.05% fund instead of a 1% fund. Those are still free, they still work, they're just rebuilding years instead of a decade, and that's not failure. That's the system giving you a smaller surface to work with. A few more honest footnotes. 7% returns are a historical average, not a subscription service. Some decades deliver 0, which is why you retire with a cash buffer and some flexibility instead of a spreadsheet and a prayer. Healthcare between early retirement and Medicare at 65 is the genuinely hard problem. It's the exact reason the HSA move matters so much. And researchers are currently debating whether the safe withdrawal rate is 4.7% or closer to 3.7%, so build a margin instead of an excuse. Here's where I land. Somewhere out there is a version of you 10 years from now, and the gap between the one who retires at 64 and the one who retires at 54 isn't talent, isn't income, and isn't luck. It's an hour. One evening of switching a bank account, checking a contribution box, swapping a fund, and opening an HSA, 4 settings the system preset against you and quietly hoped you'd never inspect. The financial industry's entire business model is the assumption that you won't do boring paperwork. Tonight, be the rounding error in their forecast, because nobody hands out trophies for working 7 extra years to fund someone else's record quarter. If this opened your eyes even a little, share it with the person you know who still banks where they did at 19. I'll see you in the next one.